This conference will now be recorded.
So welcome everyone. This is our first peer-to-peer webinar, and the topic tonight is Camp in a Kit, learning how to use and design summer camps as a fundraising activity for your team. And know that these are camps that work especially well in rural counties and in areas where there currently aren't a lot of offerings of summer camp options for students in kindergarten through about 7th or 8th grade. We went ahead and did short introductions already. Today's agenda will include those introductions, some things to consider, the nuts and bolts of running a camp, stories of success, and a Q&A session. We did do our introductions because it's a small group and we don't want to bore everyone with non-essential information. And basically everyone is interested in doing summer camps because they do recognize this can be a great fundraiser for their team. So let's get right to it. The things to consider that we're going to be looking at are the who, what, when, where, and how. Not necessarily going to spend a lot of time on the why. We all know that the why is about raising funds for your team. But let's dive right into the who. So in order to get your camp going, you need to be thinking about who is going to be doing the work in the background. Who is going to be your lead organizer? It's great to have lots of people involved and lots of students involved, but you also want to have one person who's really overseeing this entire project. So you want to identify who is the organizer for this camp. And that organizer is going to be looking at it from the very macro level and checking to make sure that all of the boxes get checked as you're putting this in place. You do want to have someone who's dedicated just to the publicity of the camp, and that's why it's really important to be thinking about your camp now. You want to make sure that your camp is being listed in all of the calendars that happen for parents looking for camps. And those calendars typically start being published in January and in February. So you want to make sure that you are being listed in those camp listings so that parents know that this is one of the options that they can consider as they're putting together their child's summer camp schedule. So you also want someone who's in charge of the publicity to get on all of those calendars, to think about where you might want to do some public service announcements on the radio, maybe doing a television, one of the morning shows, so that people will know that your camp is happening. Publicity also involves putting up flyers if there's a children's museum or a science museum, at the grocery store, at the various schools, at preschools or at after-school programs. You want to get the word out to all of those places. You also need to determine who is going to handle registrations for your camp. How are you going to process that? And so who is going to oversee tracking the number of students registering for your camp, tracking that they have paid, tracking that you're getting all of the permission slips and consent and release forms and medical releases and all of that paperwork? Who's going to take care of being that paperwork person? The other who to consider is your camp counselors. Ideally, your camp counselors are your students, your FRC students. But you might also want to bring in a few other people that they think they might want to be on a robotics team, but maybe they haven't quite jumped into it yet. You can recruit them to be camp counselors. They don't necessarily have to be on your team. But ideally, you do want your camp counselors to be high school students because in my experience, they get the hero worship from the littler kids, and so they make really a good camp counselors. Along with your camp counselors that are students, though, you do need at least one, preferably two adults that will be present throughout the camp so that you have them there for all of the safety and liability reasons as well. You need to know who's going to handle the money, who's going to track the payments, who's going to make sure that expenses are tracked as well as all of the income. And then who's going to handle the wrap-up, the follow-up emails and communications to say, hey, thanks for coming for your camp. Maybe do a survey to evaluate it and understand how you can do things to make your camp better. I think it looks like we have Sharon with audio now. Sharon, can you speak and can we hear you?
I am hoping you can.
We can hear you. Sharon,
Ah,
what can you add for us about the who as people are starting to plan their camps?
I had our FRC captain handle um, being the like a camp director. I don't see a who on there for a camp director, but it was important to me that even the parents who were bringing their kids to the camp, it was important to me that they realized that this was being run. It was a student-led, high school student-led camp where they were sharing what they knew with the kids. So it was um, very upfront and clear as to who was running and uh, imparting knowledge, I guess, on the campees or the campers that were attending the camp. Um,
I
I,
love
sh-
that idea of a camp director, so we will add that next time. That's great. Go ahead.
um, yeah, she kind of did the meet and greet with the parents as they were coming in. She and I did that together. I looked at it as her kind of shadowing me and me kind of giving her a push, do this, say this, next time someone comes in, you could do this. And really to get the kids, the FRC kids, to realize that the first year that we did the camp, it was a time when they were learning how to do the camp and that they weren't going to be perfect and that they would tweak it and we would do our very best the first time and grow from that point. With that being said, she and I both handled the registration because we had a Google form and together we would look at the registrations when they came in. Um, the documents we actually created ourselves, and we had a parent that was an attorney and we had them kind of look over the verbiage of that. We did share uh, and take information from like NC State and some other schools, looking at what what their applications looked like and their disclaimers and things like that, and kind of built ours from what others had done regarding their summer camps to put our stuff together. In the end, it worked
Sharon,
out
would you be
okay.
willing to share that form?
I think I do still have a copy of that, and I would love to share that with everybody. It's the registration form and the application, and it basically included like um, a disclaimer that we were not going to let their child leave with anybody without authorization, that name, and they had to show an ID to pick up their kid. Um,
Yes.
so,
Great.
great. Yeah, they would just say, "Oh, well, let so and so pick them up." Well, we're talking little kids, so
Right.
we were pretty good about that, and so there were some things like that that I think, like at the last minute, we were like, "Wow, well, what are we going to do about this?" And we included it, and so I would like to have everybody see that ahead of time so that you weren't scrambling at the last minute like we were. Anything that I can do to help at all, I'd love to.
Okay, great. Well, if you could send me that form, we'll make sure to post that for everyone to see in sort of the Camp in a Kit paperwork that comes with it. So that's great. Thank you.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and move on to the what. So you have to decide what kind of camp are you looking to offer. What we can help most with is offering camps that are based on the First LEGO League Junior program or the First LEGO League program. That's where we've got the equipment. That's where we've got some of the expertise and materials ready to share with you. So a First LEGO League Junior camp is based on the First LEGO League Junior program that has just passed, or you can pick any year, any theme that you want. So you don't have to do the season that's currently happening, which is Mission Moon. You could do hydrodynamics from the year before. You could do any of the past seasons. And when you're doing that camp, you're basically using a combination of the We Do 2.0 kits. And so that particular kit comes with all kinds of activities that you can do so that you're not just locked into doing what might make sense for the First LEGO League Junior program. But in addition, you can get a copy of the engineering notebook and you can follow the curriculum guide that comes with First LEGO League Junior program straight through, or you can modify it and adapt it. So you can decide, do you want to just do the poster I mean, not just the poster. If you want to just do the Lego model and the Lego building and the Lego programming and skip the Show Me poster, that would be fine. You could say, well, you still want to do that research piece. It'll take a little bit more preparation on your part to bring in the materials to help them create a poster and have a more formal expo in the last hour of the camp at the end of the week. But the First Lego League Junior camp is very, very adaptable and very easy for you to pick and choose the different pieces that you would like to do. The key to keep in mind is that the First Lego League Junior curriculum is written for basically 1 hour once a week. You would then be doing lessons 1, 2, maybe 3, depending on how long your camp is. So you're truncating it to get it into 1 week, but you're still going to use the full hour for each of the lessons that are in that book. If you're doing a First Lego League-based camp, what I recommend in the curriculum that I created and that I'm happy to share with everybody is that you're going to spend the first 2 days, 3 hours each day, just building their skills, using the Carnegie Mellon EV3 programming lessons that they have that takes you through every step of building a robot and then steps the students right through how to program the robot to go forward, backwards, make turns, how to use each of the sensors. And then on Wednesday morning, maybe introduce a little bit of a challenge. But that third morning is when you're now going to introduce the First Lego League mat and obstacles from a past season. And now they're going to just spend the rest of the camp building and programming robots to actually play games on that First Lego League mat. And you'll be amazed at how many missions they can accomplish in just 2.5 days. And again, we have several mats and obstacles for you to borrow. So it doesn't have to be this particular season's mat and obstacles. It can actually be 2 or 3 or 4 seasons back. Once you've
Can
decided
I say something
what...
real quick? I'm sorry
please
to
do.
interrupt.
No, go for it.
But I just wanted to come in from the teacher perspective and not having ever done FLL myself perspective. I don't know if you all have, but at the time I took the leap of faith and said, hey, you know, these summer camps would be a really great way for us to establish and keep the team going. I had no experience with FLL or programming, but I did find that that there was, and the resources are online, where they will go through a 5-day, do this on day 1, do this on day 2, and there's some instructions as far as like if the kids don't know how to program an FLL robot, that what we did was we said, you guys are going to teach the camps, and they were like, but we don't know anything. I'm like, well, that's awesome, because here's all the stuff so you can learn it. And and they went through and did all the lessons themselves first, and then we talked about that and said, is that going to be enough for us to do? You know, how is this going to look? And so don't think that you particularly and specifically you have to be able to give the camp yourself, because it really is a great opportunity and learning experience for your teenagers at the high school level to kind of go through this themselves and learn how to become little mini teachers, and they get excited about it because it is FLL and it is really cool and it's Legos. So they are actually willing to go through the lessons and learn how to do it themselves. So right now, I know any one of my kids could actually come in and be a camp counselor and deliver that information. And I still don't have that information. I just managed and monitored them to make sure that they were doing it and making sure the parents were happy with what was being taught to their kids. So just wanted to add that little bit of information for you guys to digest.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Marie.
That's great. No, that's great, Sharon. Thank you for that. And I really do highly recommend using the Carnegie Mellon curriculum for learning the programming for the EV3. It's free. The kids can work at their own pace. I will share the curriculum that I created, but like Sharon said, there's lots of other options out there. I have no ego attached to what I've created. Anybody can use it, anybody can modify it, or you can go online and find something else. But do look at the Carnegie Mellon for the FLL piece. First Cycle League Junior, it's all spelled out for you, so that's pretty easy. Equipment needs. You need to figure out what you need. What you can borrow from First North Carolina would be the We Do 2.0 kits and the iPads that you need to do the programming for those kits. You can also borrow basic buckets of Legos, and this year you would also be able to borrow the Mission Moon kit as well, and then at least a template book that you could make photocopies of if you want to use the engineering notebook. So for First Lego League Junior, it really is an all-inclusive package to borrow. You don't need to supply anything outside of that for the technical part of the camp itself. First Lego League is a little bit different. For the First Lego League camp, we can loan you EV3 kits, so you can use those. However, we do not have the computers for the programming to loan you for those EV3 kits. It's our assumption that either your high school students would have a laptop that they can use for the group of kids that they're working with during that camp, because the Carnegie Mellon and the EV3 software is a free download, or that if you're doing this camp at a school or through your school, that your school would have computers that you can access, or somehow your team might have computers to access. That can be one of the stumbling blocks to doing a First Lego League style camp, but you do need to figure out how to get access to some computers to run that program. The general rule of thumb, I think, for best practices for summer camps, for First Lego League Junior and for First Lego League style camps, is 2 students per piece of technology. So 2 students working on 1 EV3 robot, or 2 students working on 1 We Do 2.0 kit. That way, for a summer camp, because it is not competition, it's not, something that you're trying to teach a whole lot of teamwork, you're really teaching more about the technology piece. You want to make sure that every single student gets plenty of hands-on time with both the Legos and with the coding of the Legos. Sharon, did you guys do a different ratio?
No, actually, that was about what we did as well. I ended up having enough kids on the team that they paired up because it gave them a little bit more confidence in dealing with the younger kids, because some of them had not ever had to do that. And so they were like, what do we do with 6-year-olds? We're not sure. And so they paired up, and we really had a 1-to-1 ratio. Um, but at the second year, it could definitely be 1 counselor to at the most 3 students. And again, it's because parent satisfaction is what we're going for. We want the kids to be happy, but we also want the parents to be happy. So the more the kids go home and talk about what they've done, the more excited their parents get about it, the more repeat customers you will have, the more word of mouth it will spread. So if you keep the numbers low and can give the kids the individual attention and playtime that they really need for a summer camp, you will build your summer camp. If you go to more than that, where you've got maybe 5 kids to 1 teenager, it's too much. It'd probably be too much for an adult, but it's definitely too much for a teenager to manage and make everybody happy, in my opinion.
Well, and I would agree that it's really important, especially I think, to have the technology, that you have 1 computer for every 2 campers, 2 kids sharing 1 EV3 and 1 computer. We have 8 EV3s to borrow, so your maximum camp would be 16 kids. And quite honestly, you don't want to go much bigger than that. So
Agreed.
be thinking about that as you're figuring out what equipment you will need. And then, to snack or not to snack. Sharon, did you snack or not snack?
We told the parents that snacks would not be provided, but that they were welcome to bring a snack. That way we weren't concerned with food allergies, or it was kind of like whatever they wanted to bring, we would make sure that there was a scheduled time that child could take a break to enjoy their apple or cookies or whatever they brought. And that worked fine. That's what we did.
Okay, great. So the next thing to look at is the when. When are you going to hold your summer camp? This is where it helps to do some research. Find out what other camps of all kinds are being offered in your area, what other sports camps, especially for the age range that you're targeting. So let me step back and speak about that a little bit. If you're doing a First LEGO League Junior style camp with the We Do 2.0s, you can do it as young as kindergarten. I would not necessarily recommend rising kindergartners. It would be more kids who have finished kindergarten and are rising first graders. I'm just not convinced that the curriculum material is really, truly accessible for that young an age yet. North Carolina is piloting a program for 4 and 5-year-olds, so I would almost say wait a year for that. So you decide, what age group. You can do the We Do 2.0 very successfully for first, second, and third graders. Fourth graders is that bridge. Some of your fourth graders, if they've never touched a Lego and they've never done any coding, they might really enjoy junior style camp. Other fourth graders, if they've been exposed to a lot of Legos and they already have a fair amount of computer experience, they're ready for the First LEGO League program. You can do First LEGO League style camps from fourth grade all the way through 8th grade. The sweet spot tends to be that 5th and 6th and 7th grade level. So just keep that in mind. So as you're doing your homework, trying to decide what time of year you're going to do this camp, you want to be looking at what other camps are being offered for that first grade through 8th grade age range in your area, regardless of the topic. And you want to make sure that you're not competing against too many of those. You want to find that sweet spot where there's really not a lot of other offerings happening for the kids. That's a great time to do it. You can do these camps clearly in the summer. Summer camp is a great time to do it. You can also, though, look at possible breaks when there's a week-long break, or if you have year-round schools and they've got their 3-week break, you can slide in a camp at some odd times of year when nobody else is offering anything and parents are still looking for something for their kids to do. Time of day is something to take in consideration. When I was running camps, I did them either from 9 to 12 in the morning or 1 to 4 in the afternoon. For the younger kids, we tended to do 2-hour camps instead of 3-hour camps. First LEGO League, highly recommend a minimum of 3 hours. Sharon, how long were your camps?
We did 8 to 12, and we took a break from 12 to 1, and we had a second session that started from 1 o'clock, or ranged from 1 o'clock to 5 p.m.
And was it the same group of kids for morning and afternoon, or different sets for morning and afternoon?
No, but we did have parents that signed them up for both sessions so they could stay with us all day.
Okay.
That did happen.
How did you handle it? Did they just repeat the same material?
We, at that point, went to more individualized type instruction, and we had some of our stronger FRC kids pair with them, and we took them as far as the child was willing to go. I mean, if they wanted to look at the FRC bot and wanted to look at how that was done, we did it. Again, our focus really was, because it was our first year, it was a matter of, what is this going to look like? How are we going to do it? And don't be married to any procedure initially. And that way we could tweak things as we went along. And, Max really was just, the child is here, the child wants to learn. What are we going to do with them? But we had plenty of things in mind. They had sumo bots available, and did that as with them. They did the FLL bots. They went with some kids wanting to program Python, and we did have somebody who could help them with Python, and they had brought their own robots from home, which was a little intimidating initially. But we were like, okay, well, we talked to the parents and said, well, what do they know? Why are they wanting to do camp? And it was really, they wanted to program in Python and have some hands-on with that, and some people that knew a little bit about programming that could help. And we sought those people out to help them with that camp. So that part of the camp. So yeah, it was a matter of just, doing what needed to be done at the time. And we tried to split them off into different sessions if they were wanting to specialize into something, so that we had people there And for the most part, it was 8 to 12, and it was FLL. We didn't have any FLL Jr. kids, but we did have a demand that younger kids' parents were contacting us, and we did take a child as young as 6 who ended up programming the FLL bot and was one of the quickest to learn, and really did a good job. So I wouldn't let the age thing intimidate you or not intimidate, but I wouldn't preclude a child from attending camp. I would let the parents know we are kind of looking at this age group. What is your
Hmm.
experiences of your child? Because I asked that on the application. Does
Okay.
your child have any programming experience? Does your child have any robotics experience at all? And then they would type in, yes, mine has gone to summer camp every year. We normally go to NC State, but it's too expensive. We'd like to come to yours. And so then I could get an idea we looked at every application that came in to get an idea of where the kids were at, so we knew who to pair with who, and we didn't really pay
Great.
attention to how old they were.
Okay. Thanks for that. That's really helpful information. I know that in my experience, yeah, a lot of parents are just looking for childcare, and
Right.
so they do want all day. So you have to decide ahead of time, are you willing to take care of a child all day, which means now you've got to figure out lunch, and know that kids get really tired if they're doing such intense learning for too long, so you will have to schedule in some more breaks, and just making sure that everything is appropriate. And it can be a challenge if you have a kid who's staying all day and all the other kids aren't. So you as the camp directors or the camp organizers can decide that no, we're only going to let kids come for one session a half day. Maybe you'll do an FLL style camp in the morning and a junior camp in the afternoon, or vice versa. But be thinking about that. How long are your camps? What time of day? What time of year? And how many camps do you want to offer? Do you want to try this the first year for just 1 week, where you're doing a camp in the morning and a camp in the afternoon? Do you want to go ahead and try doing 2 or 3 weeks in a row? And you know your community better than anybody else, and you know how many kids are out there and how many parents might be looking for this. You might be surprised that, wow, you have such demand, you have a waiting list, and you can say, well, let's put everybody on a wait list, and once we fill the wait list, we'll go ahead and offer a second week of camp. But be thinking about all of the when for how you want to do your camp. Next thing to think about is the where. It's really important to have a location that is going to be kid-friendly. If you're able to do it at your school where there's already, desks and computers, and you've got enough bathrooms, that's great. You can do it at a science center or a children's museum, or a Parks and Rec. A facility might be ideal, but make sure that whatever place you pick, it is, number one, safe for young children to be at, that you've got easy access to enough bathrooms for however many kids you're going to be working with, and that you have a place to take a break. I have always found that you really do need to take a break where they can run around and burn some steam. So if you have access to a playground or a natural area to get the kids outside and away from the classroom lighting, I think that's a really healthy thing to think about. Sharon, things to share about considerations for location and space needs?
We were blessed because we had the school it was a high school, and we reserved the space, and all public schools are actually available to the public. There's usually a fee associated with it, but since we were employees there, and the team was hosted at the school, we were able to use that space for our summer camps, which automatically had AC and bathroom facilities and things like that, and plenty of space. We made sure we had tables for all the kids to work at. We did have a little break area, because we wanted them to move away from the materials completely, so that we could monitor them actually having a legitimate break. Because we did have kids that were like, no, I don't want a break. I want to keep working. But the break was also for our counselors.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted my students, or my teammates or team members, to be able to get away for 15 minutes and have an adult sit and kind of watch the kids while the kids on the team could kind of powwow together and say, hey, this is going right for my group, this is not going well for my group, so that they had a little bit of time. We did it right in the middle. We did an hour and 45 minutes, so 8 to 9:45, and then had a 15-minute break till 10 o'clock. And then we were cleaning up by about 11:45. So it looked like a 4-hour stretch, but it was really an hour 45 minutes and then another hour 45 minutes. And that seemed
Great,
to
thanks
work
for
out
sharing
really
that.
well.
Yeah, and so what that means is then you also had additional either adults or other students that took care of the younger students during the break so that your counselors had their powwow?
Right. We had parents of our FRC parents that are always around. They also knew that this was a way for the team to raise money. And as the team raised money, then their fees go down too, because they know that the money raised goes directly back to the team. So I had asked parents that they would be willing to come in, and they were all of my level 2 certified parents. I didn't ask anybody who had not. That's a consideration too. If you're telling parents, hey, we're school teachers, everybody's been cleared, or we're all with FIRST, we're mentors, we're YPP certified, but then you have some parent who, just stopped in and say, hey, can you watch the kids for 15 minutes? That's not okay, because the parents are expecting somebody who's had some kind of background screening to be in charge of their children. So it was one of our mentors, one of the team's mentors, actually two of the team's mentors, who volunteered to come in and out for me, that worked close by to help with the summer camp so that I wasn't alone.
Great, great. And I'm really glad you raised that point about having them either certified through the schools or cleared through the volunteer system at the school itself, or making sure that they go through YPP through FIRST headquarters. That's really important. Thanks. So we're going to look at the how. And Sharon, if you're good with this, could you talk through, some of this? Because you've done it more recently than I have. And before you jump in, training camp counselors, that is something that Julia and I are happy to come and do a half day with your high school students. If they're feeling nervous or unsure, we're happy to come in and give them some professional development just like we would for any teacher. So do keep that in mind. But Sharon, I think this is something that you can speak to really clearly on more of the nuts and bolts of the how.
Right. The training the camp counselors again. This was one of the things. The kids had tried various fundraisers. They were tired of trying to sell M&Ms and Skittles and all that kind of stuff at school, and it really was not making much money. And when you're looking at the fees, they're, even if the fees are covered by your school, the kids want a second robot, or they want, this kind of part or this kind of metal or whatever it is. You can never have too much money, is in my opinion. So, even if we raised more than we need, it was reserve money. So we talked about it as a team. What could we do to raise this money? And the kids really bought into, hey, I had kind of put a little presentation and said, if we do this many slots for this many kids, we charged $200 per session. Um, and I had a lot of grief initially from the school saying that there's no way people would pay that for a camp in our area. But the thing is, the people that really want their children involved in this activity are willing to drive to NC State to drop them off. And so I wanted to have a camp that would be more affordable than NC State, and be able to have the information that the kids, at their level are ready to hear. So anyway, we talked about that as a group, and the kids themselves decided, hey, yes, this is something we want to do. Then it was, okay, well, how are we going to do that? What is that going to look like? And you as a teacher, I don't know how many of you are teachers, but I brought in that teaching experience and said, okay, this is my classroom. You guys have plenty of models of teachers. How do you organize it? What is your day going to look like? What are you going to do when they come in? What does 8 o'clock look like? And it was a lot of them talking about it and trying to pull out their experiences from being a student of how they wanted that to look. And then there was some fear in dealing with small children, especially for my kids that did not have siblings. I had several that were only children in their family and were like, I don't know what to do with a kid, not a little one. And so I made sure that those kids that had any kind of uh, hesitation of dealing with was paired with somebody who was like, well, I watch all my siblings. I've got 5 of them, and there were definitely, you could see the dynamics of the kids as individuals with who was comfortable and who was not. So the way to alleviate that was to pair the ones that were hesitant with the ones that were confident and say, well, you're not going to be alone. You're going to be with this person. And there was, I've got this. Okay. So then I had them make a schedule. What are you going to do at 8 o'clock? What are you going to do at 8:15? What are you going to be doing at 8:30? What are you going to do if the kid doesn't want to pay attention? Oh, that's on to classroom management. But yes, we did talk about behaviors. Um, I said that, they expect that most of them weren't worried about it because it's robots and they have fun with it. And their expectation was, we love robotics. We come to robotics. If you're signing up for robotics, it's because you love robotics and programming and you want to learn. So there was no real hesitation with them that they were going to have a difficult child. Did that happen? Yes, it did. We had one little boy who, you know, um, was paired up with, fortunately, 2 boys. And one of the boys said, I'm never having children because of dealing with this child. But he kind of ran around all over the place. And I said, well, you just got to keep him corralled, refocus him. But I was never away. I was never out of their presence during the entire time. So it was one room that we were having the camp in. And so if there were any real behavior issues, then I took care of that because any I didn't want my teenagers having to try to corral them in a way that might be negative, that might be reported back and look poorly on the program. So it was a matter of me being vigilant and managing what was going on, overseeing it, giving them free reign to have this camp, but being the adult in the room to kind of manage how the process was going and just tweaking it and saying, I never really had to do anything other than, okay, you need to corral this child over here, or no, hey, Craig, you might want to grab him. He's not, walking on the desk is not safe type deal, just to just be vigilant, and then to remind the teenagers, hey, that's not appropriate for a child. And I'm like, okay, again, back to safety considerations, we talked about that in advance of, we can't have them running around the room. It's concrete. There's power tools. They can't use the power tools. Because it was a shop that the FRC team builds in. Um, as opposed to like a little classroom with an FLL table. So there's a lot of equipment in there that had to be monitored to keep them from messing with that. But that's specifically to the classroom itself. Other safety considerations I think I already mentioned was, who's picking up the child, what are they eating. I mean, I think anybody who's ever had kids, this is a whole list of things that we watch for with children, like um, what are they wearing even? Are their shoestrings tied? Making sure they don't trip, that kind of stuff. Am I forgetting anything? Do y'all have any
How many
questions?
how many kids in your camps, Sharon?
We had the first year on the first session, we had 5 groups of 2. So 10. We had 10 in the first session last year. and that was our largest session. We tried not to exceed 10.
Okay. And before we get to questions,
$2,000 a session is what it came out to. So yeah, if they were full.
so Sharon, share with us some of why you felt like your camp was such a success and why it was repeated. I mean, because your team did camps now 2 years?
Right. And they're growing.
Yeah, so tell us about that success.
Well, I think, again, we went in with the first year not really knowing what to expect. So our mantra then was be flexible. We need the money. I mean, it's kind of a joke. I don't mean to make it sound that way, but I mean, you do. If you don't make money, you can't sustain your team. So we needed to, we never told anybody no. You want a camp? We'll get you a camp. Come on in. And we did individualize things, and we weren't like, we've got to do it this way. Everybody's got to be doing it this way. The kids need to have fun. The kids need to learn robotics. My thing with my teenagers was I want you and that child in the last 15 minutes to discuss what they did in camp, so that when their parents ask them what they did in camp, they have something to say. And if they don't have anything to say, then they're not doing enough in camp, and you need to do more with the kids. And again, looking at it from a business standpoint, and customer satisfaction is what drove us. We had a structure for a curriculum that we could use, and we really wanted to stay within that structure, but we weren't married to it. And we made sure the kids were happy. We made sure they had something to talk about with mom and dad when they went home, or grandma, or whoever they were going home with. And then we surveyed the parents. I would survey them when they came in, and I taught our FRC captain to do that. I did it the first day, and I said, this is what I want you to do every day. Every day when they come in, did Carly tell you what she did yesterday? I said, personally, I would like it to be the teenager that worked with the child greeting the parents. So it's your group, you're with the kids the whole day. Don't stand over here and wait. And I think that's part of first teaching kids how to sell themselves as well. So I looked at the summer camps as doing the soft skills that first wants them to do, how to talk about what they're doing, and present themselves. And so I had the director, and as the kids came in, they went to their camp counselor. Camp counselors went to the parents. Hey, it's good to see Carly back here again. I enjoyed working with her yesterday. Today we're going to be doing this. And it was a 30-second, conversation, but in the end of the camp, we sent out a form to ask the parents for feedback. How did they enjoy the camp? And I said in the form, we are trying to grow and make our camps better. Please be critical of us. Please tell us what we did right. Please tell us what we did wrong. And we didn't get anything wrong, except for we would like the camps to be longer, and we would like for you to have more of them, which was exciting. And at the same time, I just thought, oh, geez, I've got to have more kids to have more campers type deal. But the demand was there, and I think we did things right with how we interacted with the families, how the FRC team interacted with the kids, and we talked about, what it was like to have good customer service, and they needed to treat this as a business. Our team was a business, and this is what they were doing to raise money. And without it, this was the service that we were providing, and we needed to continue to establish it and build it. And I talked to them about that pretty much every day. So
And so Sharon, I know the
go ahead.
burning question is, how much did you raise?
Well, and this was a learning story for them too, because I had told them the fall of year before last, hey, we had talked about it the summer before, we didn't raise enough money, and we were like, well, let's do these summer camps. And I kept saying, we need to advertise, we need to advertise, we need to talk about this, we need to talk about this. And they waited and waited and waited and waited and waited. And go about, I guess it was after build season, they were like, well, hey, how about those summer camps? I'm like, yeah, how about that? Were you going to do that or not? And they were like, well, yeah, we're going to do that. We're going to do that. I'm like, well, when are we going to advertise it? Because, I think pretty much, I've had kids, and my kid, I had already picked my summer camps. I'm like, you guys are a little bit late. And I was kind of grumpy with them. And so they ended up getting the stuff together, but they didn't even advertise the camps until May. And our first camp session was mid-July. And so we only had 2 months really to advertise. And we raised about almost $3,000. And we didn't even advertise until May. And so they were excited about that. Actually, it was more than that, because it was 2 for that session, and then 2, 4, 6, 4. We did 2 weeks of it. It was about $4,500. I'm sorry, I stand corrected. About $4,500 that year. More excited about this year because it was $14,000 this year. And so it kind of made last year irrelevant. I was just like, well, how about that? We grew a thing with that kind of money and that kind of word of mouth spreading. But the difference between last year and the year before was the year before we didn't advertise until May. Last year we began advertising in January, right after Christmas. I'm like, build season is starting. Let's take a minute and just go get these posters. And it was posters, it was flyers. The kids had taken pictures from the summer camp the year before, and they had really made. In fact, if I can get a copy or a picture of the poster, I will send that to you, Marie, and let you take a look at that and see if you want to post that for everybody to look at. It was just even that was a teaching opportunity, because we looked at how much information do you put on the poster. Do you want to sell them the camp when they call us, or do you want to give them all the information so they don't even call? And I said, we want to find out if they're interested. So we're not going to put everything on a poster. We want people to call us and ask us, basically, so that we can quiz them on why they're calling in the first place and see how we can help them, because we really didn't know what kind of response we would get at all. So we were fishing for information. So we put just enough in there to get them to call us and inquire more about it. We didn't put the cost on the poster. Um, I will say there were a couple people who called and were like, it's not free. And we're like, well, let me tell you a little bit about why it's not free. And, this is a fundraiser for our FRC team. And then some people were like, oh, okay. And they were fine with paying. And some people were like, well, I'm sorry, I thought this was free. And they hung up the phone. And that's going to happen. And that's okay. But I would just advertise as early as possible, so people can
Sharon,
plan accordingly.
this is Cindy. So how
Hi.
many camps did you run that you earned those dollars? Was it just a week or was it multiple weeks?
We did 2 back-to-back weeks the first year. The first summer we did mid-July and the week right after that. So we had 1, 2, 3, so 4 sessions overall, and it was just the 2 weeks back to back. And
And this past
then
summer, how many sessions?
this past summer we did FLL Jr., FLL, and FRC. And all of the FLL Junior camps were in June.
And how
FLL
many
was in
camps?
July. It was 2 weeks. The last 2 weeks of June for FLL Junior, and then they did FLL again in July, and then they did the FRC camp right the first week of August.
And how many FLL camps?
2. They
Okay.
didn't do 2 weeks. They did they did let's fill them up. They did open more sessions though.
Okay. So how
So
many
instead
total
of it being
sessions did you
limited,
do this past summer?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Okay.
Because FRC went all day.
And I'd like to point out that this was in Johnston County, and not only was this team doing those camps and raising that $14,000, but the other team in Johnston County was also doing summer camps, and they also raised enough to cover their registration fees. So it is possible to have multiple camps being offered in a community and for everybody to turn it into a win. Consider, you've got a ton of children in your communities in those age ranges, and parents are really, truly begging for these kinds of camps. And they love having camps taught by high school students. It's just magic. So I do want to open it up, though, to everybody for questions and answers. So if you've got a question, you can either put it in the chat window or just go ahead and speak up and tell us what your question is.
This is Cindy. What was the cost for the session again? Did you say?
It was $200 per session. We offered a $50 discount for the second child. So if you had 2 children attending, it would have been $350.
That was for a half-day camp.
Right. The $200, basically, one of the things that I broke down to parents when I was talking to them on the phone was that they were going to be there for 20 hours. It was 20 hours of instruction for $200. That equates to $10 per hour. And that's basically what you pay for a babysitter, only with us, they are learning something. So I felt that the $200 was fair.
Well, that's a great way to explain it too, is to break it down per hour like that. I think that's a really smart marketing tool. Great idea.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Other questions?
I don't know what questions I have right now, Marie. What I'm going to have to do for my team that I have right now, I have mostly a new team right now. So I have to go back to the team and present this and see if it's something that they're interested in doing. Are students available during the summer? I know I'm not available during the summer. I work a full-time job, and I'm not a school teacher, so I would have to use vacation time to help run the camp unless I have a parent that's willing to volunteer and be there to run the camp with the students.
Yeah.
So I have some different logistics to figure out, different from Sharon, it sounds like, because she's a teacher and she's absolutely off during the summer. So I don't see that we would be able to fundraise the type of dollars that you did, only because we wouldn't have the ability to offer as many sessions.
Right.
So those are some things I just have to look at.
Yeah. Other folks on the call, questions?
This is Stephanie. So right now in November, would you advise sending out a survey to the community to see what interest we would have in our community? Since we are so transient and just not knowing who's PCSing in or out during the summer months?
If I was going to do it, here's the research that I did. I called, and I did some of my stuff online. There's a lot of information about the camps that other people are offering, and usually there's a description of it online. If they don't supply the cost, which most of them do tell you how much their camps cost, then you can always call them and ask them. The reason why I did that is because I looked at the places that repeated their camps and did them again and again and again, because you know that if they're not full and they're not raising money, they're not going to have the camps again and again and again. So I went with the ones that had been around for a while and looked at theirs and what they were charging. And as far
And
as like, I would look in your area to see what is available for kids during the summer. Like, I already looked, like, our high school, there is a rec center, county led rec center right there that's free, and they offer classes and things to do, and they offer summer camps as well. So I called and I said, well, what's your summer camp like? And it's, where we play games and eat ice cream and the kids have a good time and they run around, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, well, how much do you charge for that? How full do you have a lot of kids that attend your camp? And by looking around is like what was available in the community, um, and what people were spending money on. Because if you I was directly surveying people, they would look at it kind of as an advertisement. Well, would I do this now or not? And maybe by June they've changed their minds even. Um, I just try to go with what I guess I'm not by any means an expert. It's just I know that what I did was working, and I tried to kind of look at a broad picture of what I was doing and have a little faith and not sweat the details too much. Um, but I did do the research around to see what was available for kids. Kids are off during the summer. Unless you're in a district that attends school all year long, and even they have breaks. But what do parents have to work? So where do their kids go? Is kind of what I kept in mind. And if it's affordable, I mean, they're going to pay for somebody. They're either going to get somebody to watch them and they're going to pay them, or they're going to attend some camp somewhere, or they're going to find relatives to keep them. And even the relatives, I can't tell you how many grandmas brought their kids to camp. You'll be like, I'll pick them back up at 12 o'clock. I get them for 4 hours until their mama gets home. And I'll be good. You keep them in the morning, kind of deal. Um, and you can always change the price. I mean, if they're looking for childcare, that's not a childcare service, but people are looking for some place for their children to go in the summer. Find out where they're going. That would be, if I was going to look at anything, that's where I would look. I would ask around, hey, so what's your child do all summer? Where does your child go during the summertime? And you'll find out what you should do from
yeah,
there.
and I would echo with Sharon. Rather than trying to survey your community, I really would more look at what else is being offered, because that a survey of the community, especially Stephanie, knowing how transient your community can be, you might not be surveying the right people. And my guess is that whoever is in town and living in that community in the summer months, they're going to be looking for something. And parents are really hungry for something that is educational and fun. And just the word Lego in your camp is going to attract an incredible amount of interest.
I agree.
Other
I'm
questions?
hoping, because like with the last ones, like with last year, what I was offering for my students to do, here's opportunity, here's opportunity, here's opportunity. But they all kept telling me, I can't afford, I can't afford. So like one of them, I ended up even paying for her to go to Campbell STEM camp. So I'm just wondering about, will the parents really truly buy in for how much we would be charging?
Find out what the childcare is costing them.
Yeah, find out what the market is bearing now for these elementary school kids. What are they doing in the summer? Where are their parents sending them for the summer, and what are they paying for that? And so if in your area $200 is really, really high compared to what they're paying for other activities, then yes, that's not what you can charge. But you might be really surprised and shocked at what parents are paying for their kids to attend other camps. And you want to find your price point that's right in the middle of what those other places are charging.
You do need to do a little bit of research about what's going on in the market right there so that you pick an appropriate price point. I told you that I had a little bit of gruff from the school of charging $200, but I knew that the people from this community were sending their kids to NC State and UNC for for camps for robotics and STEM camps, and I knew that all I had to do was drop down below them and offer them an alternative, a more affordable alternative, and I would be able to get some of that pizza pie, so to speak. So I was doing more market research for what I could charge around here, and that's what I would suggest that you do in your area as well. It may not be
Did you run?
200. It could be more, it could be less.
And I would look at what are they charging if they just put them in an after school summer daycare type situation? What's that weekly rate? And then what's the weekly rate if they're also now going to a more of an educational camp, say at Campbell or somewhere else, or a sports camp, and you put your price point somewhere between those two.
Okay.
So that because you are educational, you should be more than just daycare. But you also don't want to be the most expensive camp in town. So doing that market research, I think, is very critical.
Did you run it, Sharon, through your school board for fundraiser for the summer, or did it go through your booster?
It went through, actually just stayed right with us. The only people that I asked for approval was the principal because it was being held at his school. But since the FRC team is under the first organization, I didn't feel that I would need to get school board permission to do something like that. I mean, I honestly feel that that is something that I actually could do on my own with a community-based team, which would not require school board permission for a fundraiser. All policies are different in the district.
Okay.
I would definitely, look to see if you need be. If you're at a high school, I would say the first place to start would be with your principal. Hey, this is a summer camp we're planning to do. We would like to use the facility. What do I need to do and who should I contact? Would probably be where I would go first if I was at a high school.
This is a little off topic, but so in my email I saw a STEM community grant opportunity for school systems. Would that
STEM equity grant?
Be
Say that again.
Could that be used to set up summer opportunities for students, like what we were talking about, but not as a fundraiser?
No, the STEM equity grant would very likely not be funded if it was a summer camp type program.
Right, but our schools could still apply for that to bring more first opportunities to our area.
Yes, absolutely. Just know that that letter of interest is due this week.
November the 4th.
Okay. Any other questions about camps? Well, we're going to go ahead and go ahead.
Just one quick question. Are parents more interested in finding opportunities for the younger children typically in their areas and not more so for the high school students?
Yes. Most parents are looking for something in that K through 7th grade range. Because that's the age range that they cannot leave them home alone unattended.
Right.
What were the startup costs for the camp when what money did you have to have on hand before you even started?
That's a good question.
Great question. Sharon?
For us, we had another school that was doing FLL. We asked to borrow their materials. We asked the school itself, to purchase the EV3 kits for us. They did purchase 5 EV3 kits. So that came with a curriculum of its own when we did that. And they were just commercially bought. So those are for sale. And we asked, in lieu of having the school fund, just give us money, or they went through some kind of, they had to spend some money and said, is there anything anybody needs? And we said, hey, can we get some of this to run some summer camps with? So they did make that initial purchase for us for 5 of those kits. But so that is an initial investment that has to be made somehow, somewhere, if you want to own them. Other than that,
or you can borrow
then
them from us.
exactly, you can borrow them, which is very cost effective. The only drawback to that is if other people are borrowing them, you kind of want to get your dibs in first and say, hey, this is the week that I need them, and then make sure that they know that that is the time frame that you're looking at, definitely, because you are advertising that time frame and would need the parts and stuff for that. As she already said, the computers would not be supplied. Now, with the funds that we raised, our booster club bought computers for us, so that we had 5 laptops too. So we had the kits purchased by the school, we had the laptops purchased by the booster club, and we were pretty much good to go and set up.
And do
But
keep in mind, if you're borrowing materials from First North Carolina for either the First LEGO League Junior or the First LEGO League program, it is first come, first serve. And so if you know you're going to want to borrow our materials, the sooner you get on our calendar, the sooner that we can guarantee that you will have access to those materials. Other questions?
Thank you.
Well, we're going to call it a night and give you all back 13 minutes of your time this evening. This recording will be available. We'll be posting it on our website and sending out a note to everybody when it is available. But I want to say thank you all for your interest, and hopefully you will have fun and go forth and camp. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.